Hello, I'm Ross Buchanan, and in this video I want to talk to you about living a more eco-friendly life. Now, this is a bit of a difficult one because there isn't just one way to live a more eco-friendly life, and also if you try too hard you end up compromising the quality of your own life, and then what's the point? But the two things I wanted to talk to you about were food and fashion. Now, if you can start on those 2 points, then you're already well on your way to living a more eco-friendly life. And remember, it's better to make small changes that you can actually sustain rather than big changes that you then drop after a month or so. And it's not exclusive either. You can pretty much give any aspect of your life a more sustainable approach. But the first point I want to make is about the term carbon neutral or carbon offsetting. These are terms used by a lot of companies to give the impression that they are somehow balancing out their negative impacts on the environment by doing something good. For instance, Shell, the fuel company, have a scheme that sells the idea that they're somehow offsetting people's carbon emissions by planting some trees in Scotland. This is a company who literally drill fossil fuels out of the ground and spilled tens of thousands of gallons of fuel into the Gulf of Mexico. Like, there is no amount of trees that you could plant that could undo the atrocities that you have committed. And this is a technique known as greenwashing. But how can you, just one person, make a small change to your behavior for the benefit of the world? Let's start off with food. Okay, so what's the first thing that springs to mind when you think of eating more sustainably? I bet vegetarianism or veganism come to mind, right? I think the important thing to stress here is that there isn't a correct way to eat sustainably. I personally was vegetarian for 2 years and I was vegan for 2 months. And what happened was I actually ended up developing a minor eating disorder. I was over-policing the food that I was eating and punishing myself for doing things wrong. I think what we don't talk about enough when we talk about making changes to our diet for the environment is that they can have drastic implications on our mental health. So what's important is that you find a sustainable diet that works for you. I think this also draws on the argument of ethics versus sustainability. For instance, if you are eating well-farmed, locally sourced organic meat, then yes, the cow is still dying, which is an ethical issue, but it has way less impact on the environment than, say, a mass-produced Big Mac. So the best thing you can do with eating a more sustainable diet is your research. Look into what veggies are seasonal, so they're not getting shipped over from the other side of the world. Look into what you can get in terms of eggs and cheeses from local farm markets. Try to reduce your meat intake. And the most important thing is eat what you've already got in your fridge. If you are deciding to cut down on your meat intake, but you have half a pack of wafer-thin ham in your fridge, still eat that wafer-thin ham. It's already there. The pig's already dead, hun. So the second point that I wanted to talk to you about was fashion. So fashion's a really interesting one when it comes to sustainability, because fashion is a way that humans can express our identities. It's a way of expressing who we are and what we stand for. Take, for instance, glitter on makeup or clothes. Glitter is abhorrent for the environment. It is so bad. It's essentially microplastics we wear. They then get washed down the drain. That then ends up in the sea, which fish eat. We eat the fish, and it causes all sorts of problems for humans to digest these microplastics. But am I going to sit here and tell a drag queen that they shouldn't wear glitter because it's bad for the environment? Absolutely not. That is not the point of sustainability. We don't need to impose sanctions on people who are expressing their identities, because, as I said before, the most important thing is that you are happy in yourself and you make the changes where you feel they're appropriate. On the other hand, I do think we should be conscious of the way that our clothes impact on the environment. As you might know, lots of high street shops exploit labour that's way cheaper over in places like India and China. And then they sell it back here in the UK for as cheap as possible and as quickly as possible. At the moment, fast fashion brands are putting out 52 seasons a year as opposed to the 4 seasons that actually exist, which means that they're putting out a new line of clothing every week. Now, that kind of business model puts enormous pressure on the supply chain to deliver a finished product in that space of time. So you end up with a lot of people cutting corners, you end up with a lot of people not suitably paid for the work that they're doing, working in really awful environments. But yet again, that is an ethical issue and not a sustainable issue. So the sustainability issue here is not just stuff like polyesters and synthetic fabrics that will never ever degrade. It's the water usage in plants like cotton. So cotton only grows in really warm climates and it requires an awful lot of water to grow properly. And as I explained earlier, we put enormous levels of demand on these farmers to produce enough cotton to sustain our fast fashion industry. So what happens here is that cotton actually takes priority over the fresh drinking water of communities in areas where cotton grows. And not only that, but the dyes that we put into stuff like jeans and t-shirts to change the color of cotton, because obviously it's not naturally blue, pollutes fresh drinking water that already exists. So you've got another sustainability issue there because you're turning arable land that you can grow stuff in, into pretty much useless, polluted land. You're also polluting the drinking water of local communities. So how do we solve the issue? Well, first of all, we can stop buying from fast fashion brands. We can demand more from the companies that rule the fashion industry. And there are so many options available to us in the UK that don't pollute people's drinking water, that don't wreck communities and the earth. But I'm also aware that fashion has a major class issue, and a lot of people think that shopping sustainably is not possible for them in their financial situation. So if you are someone with money, definitely look into getting innovative with the clothes that you buy. There are so many awesome companies out there. I know there's people making bags out of pineapple leather. There's people making t-shirts out of mushrooms. There are people making overalls out of like the floor sweepings on factory floors. And these items of clothing are all super cool. But if you're looking for something fresh on a night out and you don't necessarily have loads of money, what you can do is shop vintage. You can go to websites like ASOS Marketplace or eBay. You can download apps like Vinted or Depop, which are great. You can even go on Instagram where people sell all sorts of clothes. I've also noticed that there's loads of cool like rental platforms on the rise. I don't think one has particularly stood out for me yet, but they're basically platforms where you can rent an item of clothing that you wouldn't necessarily normally be able to afford for one night and then send it back, which is a great way of looking fresh every single time you go out and wearing something that is pretty nice. Finally, and similarly to that wafer thin packet of ham in your fridge that you were going to bin because you're cutting down on your meat, the most sustainable thing is that you can wear is something that you already own. It's something in your wardrobe. And I think a really lovely thing that you can do is go through your wardrobe and remember why you bought those clothes. Give them some love, give them some sentimental value. Like maybe it's a jumper that your nan knitted you. Maybe it's a dress that you wore on a really nice birthday party. Get them out of your wardrobe, put them on, and like feel that love again. Like it's a really lovely way of appreciating the clothes that you have now, and it kind of takes away that like consumerist drive to go out and buy more clothes, which is in the end wrecking our environment. So good luck cracking on with those 2 points. Remember, there are loads of different ways that you can be more sustainable, from flying less or driving less, to walking more and cycling more, to planting wildflowers in your garden to attract bees, or literally any aspect of your life. You can give it a more sustainable approach. Let me know how you get on. I'm at Rossi on Twitter, and if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments below. I'm probably going to be doing some more videos like this, how-to videos. If you like them, then hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in a bit.